Welcome back to the shop. This week I'm going to be making a mail holder. I want it to have 3 shelves for mail, and I need it to be wide enough for this size of mail. So this would be like, you know, bank statements or insurance information or whatever. So these are about 6 inches wide. So I'm going to have to laminate on a couple pieces onto the side of here and then rip off an inch to give me my 7-inch wide board. So I'm trying to get I'm going to start off by getting the layout done and figure out how much of this length that I'm going to need. Then I'm going to cut it all to length, laminate on these side pieces, and then cut that down to the width that I need, because this is going to be an inch too wide with these side pieces on here. I want a little bit of space under this first shelf for key rings. So I'm going to kind of set that more or less where I think it should be, and just eyeball the height here. So if that's in the space between the shelves, between the top of the mail and the next shelf, I want to be about 1 3/4 inches. So we'll move up about 1 3/4 inches, give or take. And that should be the full length of this thing. So I don't lose my mark. There it is. Well, that's the end of my mallet. I've had this thing for a very long time. That was the first mallet I ever made. And I just made it kind of on the spot because I was building this bench at the time. And so I just kind of threw this together just to be able to build this bench. And I've used it ever since then. But it's broke now. It was kind of it was made out of cedar, so it's a really weak wood anyway. I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did. I guess coming up soon I'll be doing a mallet making video, because I do need one, and this one's not usable anymore. I'll try to get the grain orientation in a way that I like, if I can. Now remember, I got to rip an inch off the side of this because I need it to be 7 inches. So I'm gonna set my marking gauge to just a little less than an inch because once I cut this, it's going to be rough, and I'm gonna have to plane down that rough surface, plane it down to a 7-inch width, or 7-inch width. So I'm going to set this just a hair under 1 inch. So this backboard is ready to go now. Next thing I'll do is cut the 3 panels for the front of the shelves, or whatever you want to call them, pockets or slots or whatever. But I'll cut the panels for those out of this. And then I'll have to figure up the width that I want the slots to be, so that I can cut the side pieces. And then I'm thinking what I'll do is actually dovetail the side onto the front, and then mortise, and I don't know. I may just do like I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure how I want to attach it to the back, or how I want to attach the bottom. But I'll get there. I'll figure it out when I get there. But yeah, for now I'm going to cut the front for each one of these slots, and then I'll figure out what I need to do after that. So I'm going to try to just kind of eyeball the width that these need to be. And I'm going to do these, I'm going to dovetail these at an angle so that these slots are actually leaning out. So I'm going to have to measure the longer length. And I think something more or less like that, which would mean the side piece needs to be 3.5 inches, 3 3/4 inches. So the side piece will need to come out 3 3/4 inches. I probably won't have enough to use just this board, but I've got another board I can use if I need to. 3 3/4. 3 3/4. I should be able to get all 6 out of this board with just a little bit left over. We'll get a different saw. This one, that one needs sharpened. All right, got all these pieces cut, all these side pieces cut. So now I'm trying to figure out the angle that I want these slots to be angled out away from this backboard. And I'm thinking something kind of like this. The back half inch of this is going to be on here, joined onto here. So you can forget about that. That's unusable anyway. So if I go from this corner, I think that's a pretty reasonable angle. The male would go in here. It would be sloped out, so it'd be easy to grab a hold of. I think that's the angle I'm going to use. So I'm going to set that on this. All right, so this is the angle that I'm going to be making all of these shelves at. I don't know what that angle is. It doesn't really matter, but that's how I'm going to be making it. I'm going to use this bigger one. That way I can scribe a line all the way across the full length of here. Make sure it's the same. Alright, I got this first shelf done, or mostly done. Now I've got to cut the bottom piece out and then probably mortise and tenon that, or I may just cut a dado, or I'll probably just cut a groove and then slide that into the groove. That'll be the easiest way to do it. And then I can start worrying about how I'm going to attach this. Well, that worked out perfect. This bottom piece, well, it's 2 inches from the back of this to the back of this, but there'll be ½ an inch of that will be gone because of the backboard. So I actually need only 1.5 inches strip to go across here. And this is exactly 3 inches. So all I gotta do is rip this in half and I'll have my piece here. So that worked out pretty good. There won't be, that way there won't be any you know, little slivers of offcut that I don't have a use for. I'll be using the entire thickness of this board. these are 1/2 inch thick, so I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch shoulder off of here to be the lip that slides into the groove that I'm going to carve or cut into the side pieces. Alright, that's one down. I got 2 more to go. The next 2 will go a little quicker because I know the angle already that I'm going to be cutting these at. I already know I can use these to lay out my dovetails on everything else. So the next 2 will go by a little quicker. And because it's going to be repetitive, I'm not going to show I'm not going to show it all over again. I'll just show clips of me working on it. But I'm going to finish the other 2 of these, and then I will start cutting probably something like a finger joint on the sides of here, and then the opening for the finger on the sides here. We'll get all the spacing figured out, where they need to go, and then get them actually mounted on here, glued on here, and then I can start oiling everything. But for now, I'm going to get the other 2 of these done. so I finally got all these boxes done, and I'm at the point now where I need to figure out how I want to attach them to here. I keep changing my mind on what I want to do, but I was thinking of doing like a finger joint or even finger joints, but it just feels to me like a finger joint would rely too much on the glue to actually hold it together rather than the joinery. And I want the joinery itself to hold all this together. So I'm thinking what I'm going to end up doing is just make one big dovetail on each of these and just dovetail it into this backboard so that the dovetail itself will actually hold the shelf onto the backboard rather than being reliant on the glue to hold it all together. So I've got to figure out the spacing I want to use, and I think I want to leave about 2.5 inches at the bottom for key ring hooks to be mounted onto. So there's 2.5 inches. Two and a half. And then between the boxes, I'm thinking about 6 inches. Yeah. And that'll leave me about 5.25 at the top. So that's what I'll do. So I'll just mark out everything, lay out one big dovetail for each box, mount it onto here, or cut out the joinery to be able to mount it onto here, and then I'll have to disassemble all these and then glue it up as I reassemble it, mount it onto this backboard, and then oil it and it'll be done. Perfect. And that's not going anywhere. Even with no glue, that would be just fine. So I got 5 more of those to do. Alright, so I've ran into a little bit of a setback here. So the person I'm making this for actually already has one of these. And the thing they wanted was one that was wider, because they couldn't fit the wider male into the slots on the one that they already had. So theirs had 3 shelves, and so I made mine to be 3 shelves. I designed it to have it be a 3-shelf mail holder. The problem is theirs, not only was it not wide enough, but also it was a lot shorter. I made mine so that the mail in the slot has room. It'll fit in here, and there's room at the top. But theirs wasn't set up that way. These shelves were much closer together, and the mail was actually overlapping the shelf. So I had planned on putting a 3rd shelf here, but they actually don't have room. Where this is going to be hanging, there's not going to be room for that 3rd shelf. So I'm going to have to just cut this off. And it's just going to have to be a 2-shelf mail holder, which I don't think will be a big deal because these shelves are a lot deeper than the one that they had, and they're wider. So I think my 2-shelf setup will hold the same amount of mail as their 3-shelf with smaller shelves. So I don't really think it's going to be that big of a deal. I think they're going to like it no matter what, probably. But now I'm going to have to modify this and cut this off at a shorter. It's going to be a lot shorter than I had expected it to be. I think because I've already got all the parts cut for the 3rd shelf, I will probably sometime in my free time, or maybe next week, well, maybe on next week's video, I don't know, I'll actually assemble this on this part that I cut off the top, and then I'll just hang this somewhere in the shop as some kind of a shelf for me to store stuff in. Otherwise, I've just wasted my time making all this stuff. So I will find a use for it. I'll find a way to use it. But on this project, which I intended to be a 3-shelf mail holder, I am going to have to cut it off and make it just 2. So that being said, I am done with all the joinery. This stuff's just dry fitted on right now, but the joints are very solid, so it doesn't really need glue. But I am going to disassemble this and put some glue in all the joints, and then get it stained, and it'll be done. Alright, so the glue has dried. I'm going to put probably 4 hooks on the bottom for keys, and then I'll put a couple D hooks up on the top, on the back, to be able to mount it on the wall, and then I'll oil it, and it'll be done. I bend these down a little. The way they're curved, that's going to be kind of hard to get a key ring on. So I'm going to bend these down just a little. That's better.